Sophia Matilda, who was only 2 years old. She was an infant. And he decided to take his wife on a voyage, once again, women at sea, take his wife on a voyage to Italy from New York. And they set sail from New York on the 7th of November, as it shows there, 1872, and aboard the vessel was a crew of 7. And this is the actual crew log. Seven very experienced, once again, well-respected seamen. Most of them, 4 of them were from German extract, 2 of them were brothers. But like I said, very well-respected, very experienced seamen. And when they left New York, they were supposed to follow a course through the Azores and onto Italy. But on the 5th of December, another vessel, a Canadian brig, the Di Gratia, under the command of a Captain Morehouse, came across a vessel that was sailing towards him in an erratic manner. He cruised up to the vessel and hailed the vessel but didn't get a response. And he could see the name of the vessel was the Mary Celeste. So he sent his first mate and another crew member across to the ship and to find out what was going on. The first mate found that the sails had been set, but not set very well. He found that everything else was intact though. There was a little bit of water in the bilges, but they could easily have been pumped out. There was nothing else wrong with the vessel. It was perfectly seaworthy. They checked the cargo, which was made up of distilled alcohol, and that's all seemed in place. He went through the cabins and found that all the crew's personal effects were still in place. Some of them quite valuable items for the time. Everything was still there. So what had caused the captain to abandon the ship? The only thing missing from the ship appeared to be the small lifeboat. And that was, the theory was that the captain and the crew had jumped into this lifeboat for some reason and abandoned this perfectly seaworthy vessel. But why? Captain Morehouse decided to claim the vessel under salvage rights and take it to Gibraltar. And they sailed the 600 nautical, they put a 4-person aboard the Mary Celeste and they sailed together towards Gibraltar. When the vessels got to Gibraltar, the Mary Celeste was seized by the local authorities and a court of inquiry was set up to investigate what had happened. Now, the head of that inquiry was a man by the name of Solly, and even in those days he was seen as a very pompous, bureaucratic person that once he'd made up his mind, nothing could change his mind. And from the very start, he suspected that Morehouse and his men had something to do with the disappearance of Spooner and his crew. And that was the tone throughout the whole inquiry. There was a whole stack of things put up to try and explain what had happened. They were in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. Had that impacted somehow? Was there a water spout? Had some of the gases from the alcohol escaped and overcome the crew and they decided to abandon the ship? Had there been sea monsters or had pirates attacked the ship? But I mean, all those things were discounted. The cargo was in perfectly sound condition. All the crew's effects and everything was still there that pirates would have taken, and same with the cargo. So it wasn't pirates. There was no reports of any big storms in that area at the time. So there was a complete mystery. And once again, Solly was convinced that Captain Moorhead and his men had something to do with it, but they couldn't prove anything. And eventually, they did award salvage rights to the crew of Di Gratia, but it was only 1/5 of the normal amount that we expect to receive, which was based on the value of the ship and the value of the cargo. So because of that low salvage amount, there was always suspicions about the good captain and his crew. And it took several years later for an American court of inquiry to go through and completely clear Morehouse and his men. But what had caused the captain to abandon, and a very experienced crew, to abandon a perfectly good ship and take to the lifeboat and never be heard from again? We don't know, but you'll find out in a minute. The Mary Celeste went on to have an even more checkered history. In September 1873, she returned to New York with new owners. But they found it very hard to get work because of the history of the ship. The author, Arthur Conan Doyle had written a short story about what he called the Marie Celeste, and that had become famous around the world. He went on to, of course, to do the Sherlock Holmes mysteries. But the ship became famous or infamous, and they found it very hard to get a crew that was willing to serve on it, and very hard to get cargo for it. And in February 1879, a new captain was appointed to the ship, but during his first voyage aboard the Mary Celeste, he suddenly fell ill and died. So this was the third captain who, during their very first voyage aboard this ship, had succumbed in some way. So the mystery kept on going. The ship was sold to another American by the name of Porter, and because of the fact that the infamy of the ship, once, like I said, he couldn't get any cargo to come on board the ship or crew, and he was losing a lot of money. So he decided to wreck the ship and claim the insurance money. He insured what was basically a worthless cargo for $800,000, which was a massive amount at the time, and then ran the ship onto a reef off the coast of Haiti, where it was destroyed, completely destroyed and written off. And then he went on and claimed the insurance money. Now, the insurance company investigated and found out that the cargo had been massively overinsured and the ship had been massively overinsured, and the captain and two co-defendants were charged in New York with insurance fraud. Porter was also charged with the willful casting away of a vessel, which at the time was a capital offence, and there was a very good chance that Porter would be hung. But before any of that could happen, one of the co-defendants was certified as being insane, and he spent the rest of his life in an insane asylum in New York. The other co-conspirator committed suicide, and then before the trial was over, within 3 months of returning to New York, Porter himself died in poverty, and so the curse of the Mary Celeste had kept on going even after she'd been destroyed. So what had caused it? Why was there a curse? No one knows until now. I've been poring over all the records of the Mary Celeste for years and years and years, and I've come up with a theory I'm going to share with you today. My theory is that when they renamed the vessel, they didn't have a proper naming ceremony. They didn't pour champagne over the bow. So we'll make sure that we do that properly. So that's the end of the talk today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been entertaining for you. I apologise that during the last talk I did say that my next talk would be about the person that I consider to be the world's greatest living adventurer, but there was a mix-up with the scheduling, and that will have to be the next talk. So I hope you do come along to that and find out who that person is. There's been a lot of interest around the ship already, so I hope you do come along. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your cruise. If you see Lee and I around the ship at all, don't hesitate to come and say good day. Thank you.